Hey, freedom lovers. Welcome to another edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. I have coming in from Orlando, Terry Brock. He's a professional speaker, a syndicated columnist, and a marketing coach. He also was at Anarchapulco this year in 2015, and he's also agreed to speak at Anarchapulco in the coming year in 2016, which we finally announced. It took way too long. I've been super busy, but if you go to anarchapulco.com, you can finally register. And actually, it's early bird. You get discount up until the end of September. So, first of all, Terry, great to see you again. And I saw you here in Acapulco, of course. But the very first question, though, I have to ask for our audience is, how did you become an anarchist?
Jeff, I have been waiting a long time to answer that question. Been watching you and really admiring what you're doing. And for me, the way I have fallen into the position, or actually I should say grown into the position where I am now, is like many people over a period of time. I was born and raised with very conservative Midwestern, Southern ideas. My parents are from the South. I was born and raised in the Midwest in a very conservative environment and kind of leaned toward a conservative ideology. I started out probably thinking more like my parents, as a Republican, thinking in that terms. And then kind of when I got into college, kind of skewed over to the other side. I actually voted for Jimmy Carter in the election for president. I considered myself a socialist, although I had no idea what that meant, knew nothing about economics. And then got
That's
into...
what it takes to become a socialist.
Yeah, usually if you have no knowledge at all, then you think, but gee, there's all things out here, we should just all share and it'll be fun. Thought, something stupid I came up with is, hey, we should just stop income after you get, and I came up with a priestly sum of $25,000 a year, and you should not be allowed to earn any more after that. That was the extent of my economic knowledge, which was zero.
Clearly.
And then I went on for, my undergrad degree was radio, TV, newspaper. I worked in that and did a lot of work on radio and had a great time with it. And then I realized I need to know some things about this thing called business. And so I went on for an MBA. And while I was in there, I started understanding a thing called economics. And I thought, ooh, this is the way it works. There's this thing called supply and demand. Oh, yeah, and even Congress can't repeal that one. They've tried, but they cannot. And it's there. And then I saw a series called Free to Choose by Milton Friedman. And that really helped me to understand more of what was going on and get a chance to do that. Matter of fact, one of the things that's a highlight in my life is a few years later, I was at the Cato Institute talking to some people there, and I just happened to be on my own in the auditorium. I was there looking around, nobody in there but me, and I was just kind of thinking, oh, this is great, real nice. And in walks Milton Friedman. He was there for a seminar or something. One of the just most kindest guys you'd ever want to meet. And I just walked, I said, Dr. Friedman, it's so good to meet you. I thank you. You've changed my life. Because watching Free to Choose, it really helped me to see how the world works more. And he said, a lot of people have mentioned that to me also, Terry. And he was just really gracious and kind. But I moved then more into a libertarian mode, thinking of myself as a libertarian, thinking, okay, this is good. The idea of do whatever you want, don't harm anyone else. And then I had the opportunity to watch this crazy, wacky guy named Jeff Berwick on these things on the internet, and he started making so much sense to realize the idea of libertarianism is good, those principles are there, but the whole idea of having government small doesn't seem to work as we tried that, and it keeps growing. And now I consider myself more of a person who loves freedom and liberty, whether we call ourselves an anarchist, a voluntarist, or whatever. That's kind of how I position myself now. The idea of living your life as you want in freedom and liberty, do whatever you want, don't harm anyone else, and be able to enjoy it. And I see the role of government less and less as, well, less and less. Matter of fact, down to zero would be just fine with me. Particularly with the technology we have today, I have to step back and think, why do we even need this 14th century concept of government where, you're pretty good with spears and I'm pretty good with the shields and, hey, those guys over there, let's go take their land and we're going to grab their stuff. Maybe we don't need to live that way anymore and we can live much more peacefully. So Anarchapulco is a big part of getting a chance to see what it's like and talking with you and others. And really, I have to thank you on the behalf of many people that are watching this, Jeff, for putting out Anarchast, and it gives us the intellectual framework, the intellectual foundation to understand what it really means to be an anarchist, that it's not the concept of somebody violently throwing Molotov cocktails, but rather the way you say it, peace, love, and anarchy. I love the way you do that, Jeff. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. And yeah, you brought up so many great points there, especially the part about how you were a socialist and you knew nothing about economics.
Yeah.
Because obviously any socialist knows nothing about economics. And it's so funny to see how it just time and time again, people like, I guess now it's Bernie something, he's running for president.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders, senator from Vermont.
Yeah, feel the burn.
Yeah, I feel like I was watching reading on Liberty.me, and I thought it was so good. So they said, "Bernie, you're drunk. Go home." We don't need to hear this. The things that he talked about, it sounds so good. When you think about socialism, if you chop off your head and just kind of go, "Oh yes, love and peace, rainbows, unicorns, and we'll all share. We'll make sure that everyone is treated." Here's the key word: fairly, and we'll do it really nice and all that. It sounds good, but the problem is in this thing called the real world, the nasty, mean place called the real world, it doesn't work. And even they don't practice it in their own lives. So, yeah, I think that it's sad, and a good remedy for it, I think, is really education and learning what economics is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the big thing that always the socialists are always missing is knowledge of economics. And I think Bernie's essentially saying that he's essentially saying, first of all, that the government's really bad. It's full of rich people who are taking all your money. So he wants to take all your money, but he'll figure out who to give it to. And you brought up the word sharing. I always love that word. If it was just sharing, if it was voluntary sharing, if you want to share with me some of those books you have behind you and I can share with you some flowers or whatever I have here, that's fine. But they're not talking about sharing. They're talking about stealing from people, and they decide what to do with it.
Precisely. Their idea of sharing is, here's the other term they use, fair share, which they never really define. It's all squishy. It's like, what is fair share? Well, it's whatever these bureaucrats do it. Oh, and by the way, just in case you don't feel like contributing what they have determined as a fair share, they send out these people that have nice little costumes on with a badge and a gun and the legal right to use force up to the point of killing you, to grab you, throw you into a rape cage, and you meet a lot of very nasty people and make your life really bad. That's what they call fair. And the challenge is, we've seen this throughout history. Many regimes throughout history have come up with the same idea. Let's just all share. Someone deserves a little bit more. And they forget that the point is, it must be voluntary. I thought Anarchapulco was so good this year. There was a lot of sharing going along. I really enjoyed buying some extra drinks for everybody, buying some extra things, treating people. We did that. Many people did that for me. We were sharing. We didn't expect anything. There were other areas where we engaged in commerce and shared with each other. That was great. But it was keyword voluntary. And that's the key that they don't like. Bernie Sanders, and not to pick on him only, because there's plenty of blame to go around, people that feel they're somehow superior to us. They have been endowed with this wonderful knowledge, and if we don't follow their way, they will use force up to the point of killing us to enforce their laws and their ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. I just thought of an article a couple of days ago that I was thinking about writing, and I still might, but I'll give you guys a sneak preview in case I do write it. And if I don't, you'll get the idea. The title is going to be something along the lines of Republicans believe in communism and Democrats believe in gun violence. And my point was going to be what you just pointed out about the socialists and the Democrats is everything they want to do is backed by guns. But they'll at the same time say they're very anti-gun, which is, the amount of cognitive dissonance in their brain is unbelievable. And then on the other side, and you mentioned you came from a conservative background, so many conservatives say they believe in the free market and all this sort of stuff, but many of the things that they really like the military or government policing, that's all centrally planned. That's essentially the same as communism. So you steal from everybody, which is what communism does, and then you let some smart person, supposedly, decide where to spend the money, and of course it's centrally planned, so that they have a monopoly on service. And things like the police, for example, they have a monopoly. And any monopoly, it never works out well. And anybody who understands free markets would understand that. But apparently conservatives have the cognitive dissonance on their side that they think that they believe in free markets, but the things that they really like war and military and government policing and things like that, is all essentially the same as communism.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like you mentioned cognitive dissonance. They definitely have that. Leon Festinger is the one that came up with that idea, and he would be proud to see the people in the way they believe today. When the conservatives say, oh, we believe in this free market, I go, really? Real free market? Well, then how about people who are adults being able to put whatever they want into their body? They should be able to do that. Oh, no, but not these drugs. These are bad. Oh, you mean the ones that currently are considered illegal that weren't before? And it's like the whole issue of this drug war. What a nonsensical thing. It's really not a war on drugs. It's a war on people. And I can say this, Jeff, I'm kind of weird. I have never in my life smoked marijuana. I might someday, but I never have. And I've been to Holland, been to Amsterdam many times, have had the opportunity to do it. I remember Gene and I were over there, my partner and I, we were walking by a store just a few months ago, and one of the Bulldog coffee shops, and she says, "Do you smell that?" And I stop and I go, "Yeah, what is that?" She goes, "That's marijuana." And we could have easily walked in. I just haven't done it. But if someone chooses to put a substance in their body, that's their business. And it'd be like, if Jeff, say you and I went out to dinner. Sometime we work pretty hard and now we're going to go celebrate. We go out to dinner. We have a great dinner. And then at the end I go, "Oh, dessert's coming. That'd be good. What do you think, Jeff?" And you say, "Well, Terry, I think I might try some cheesecake tonight." And I go, "Jeff, no, I'm going to forbid you to have cheesecake." You'd giggle and go, what do you mean? What's the point? I go, no, I'm really serious, Jeff. You cannot have cheesecake. Has sugar. It's got this bad and this bad. It's not good for. I forbid you to have that. Now you'd start thinking, "Terry, hey, I just want some cheesecake. I'm going to order some." And I go, no. I am going to stop you. I'm going to physically run over and grab you if you have cheesecake. And you'd be saying, "Terry, get out of here." And you think, of course, what right does one person have telling you what you can put in your own body, even if something like cheesecake, which by the way I like, if you're going to put in there, we could make a case on how bad it is. Well, what if we get a group of people that say, "Oh, cheesecake is bad," or "this is bad," or Coca-Cola, or whatever? Hey, they have no right telling you what to do. But also then, you're responsible. So if you eat too much cheesecake over a period of years, you put on too much weight and you get problems that can come from that. Hey, that's your problem, Junior, not my fault. You got to take care of that. And
well,
I think
not when we have
unfortunately,
Obamacare, right? And that's why socialist health care, it has nothing to do with health, but medical care is so dangerous because I came from Canada, so I already saw this. But Americans are getting a quick understanding of what socialized medical care does is it makes everything you do everyone else's business because they're going to have to pay for it. So if you like a lot of cheesecake, and this is slowly happening. It's happened in New York where they started outlawing certain amounts of sugary drinks and things like that. Because all of a sudden, it's everyone else's business what you do because they might have to pay for you because it's all socialized.
Exactly. And it's like, where do we stop with that? At what point do we ban sugar things like they tried to do, Bloomberg did in New York? And if you get this much, well, then you can't get it, but you buy 3 of these and it's okay, this size. I mean, it's ridiculous that they think they can even implement that, which they cannot. And then, what about exercise? Jeff, you did not run the prescribed number of miles that our committee for health or whatever decided you should do. No, we've got to realize it's up to the individual. This is nature. You take care of yourself, and you're responsible too. Don't come back to me if you got bad health and say, "Hey, you have to pay for my health care now." No, you do it. Now, if someone chooses voluntarily, there's that word again, voluntarily to help you out, peacefully, persuasively, that makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Talking about the drug war a little bit more, you brought up the example of the cheesecake and how you'd stop me from eating it. But it's even worse than that. If you actually take it and you do what exactly the government does with the drug war, you would actually, if you were going to act like the government itself, you would actually take me back. You would get a couple big guys, you'd wrestle me down, you'd take me back to your house, you'd put me in your basement for 5 years, and you'd feed me every day, which would cost a lot of money. You'd have to pay a guard to watch me all this time just to punish me because I ate cheesecake. The whole idea is it's insane. And not to mention, as you pointed out, where does it all stop? And so for sugary drinks and things like that, so Mayor Bloomberg, that fascist communist, whatever you want to call him, he's all the worst of everything. When he outlawed big gulps at 7-Eleven, what that also does is it creates this giant police state that they have to be out there watching. And is someone drinking too big of a cola? It's insanity.
Yeah. It is. It really goes back to, and I think Milton Friedman said it so well, again, in Free to Choose. Look at that. He said government starts out with really good intentions, but very bad results. And they don't think it through all the way that, we're just going to take from these people that have too much, some of their play money. I've heard people say their play money, and we're going to give it to these people here. And you go, wait a minute, what? You don't think it through. When you do that, people stop producing. They go, really? You're going to steal it from me? Well, then I'm not going to do it. And maybe a few more colorful military terms on the side that they'll mention and say, no, I'm not going to do this. And then people wonder why everyone now is equal, but they're also very poor. And we see that now we've got to step back, and I think it's a time now in our society that we're seeing the chickens coming home to roost, so to speak. Even today, as we're recording this, you and I are seeing yet another debacle in the news that's going on, and whatever it is that we see, ultimately, the economy is in really dire straits because you can't keep doing something that's bad. Just like on the medical side, if I drank 14 gallons of Jack Daniels a day, smoked 23 packs of cigarettes, didn't exercise, ate way too much cheesecake or whatever, yeah, chances are the laws of physics are saying, hey, could be something happen, to me, and now I'm going to pay the consequences of that. And so we've got to see what's happening with our economy, the kind of money that they've been printing, the kind of QE3 and maybe QE4 or 5 or whatever they're going to do after that. And it's not just in the United States, it's other countries. It's starting to implode, and after a while, it could get really, really bad. And like you said, I've hoped that you're wrong with your predictions, but unfortunately, you've been proven right on many of the things you've said, Jeff, and I hope that we can turn it around somehow. If not, we just need to be aware of that. And like Doug Casey has said so many times, we need to be aware it's better to be a day or a year or two too early than a day too late.
Yeah, it's quite amazing the cognitive dissonance that so many people have. For example, if you say to your typical statist, do you think a cigarette tax is good because it'll make people smoke less? First of all, it probably won't make people smoke less, but even if it does, but then you bring up, okay, well, if cigarette tax makes people smoke less, what does an income tax do? It
Yeah.
makes people earn less. And by taking money, stealing it, first of all, just the very act of stealing it is so immoral, it really corrupts an entire society. You basically
Yes.
have a society based on theft and violence, because if you don't pay, they're going to come around with guns and put you in a cage. So it's just insanity that people still have these crazy beliefs that have been proven wrong. And when they take money from a really productive people, which is what they say they want to do, right? That's what they're always saying, and they'll take it from the rich. Well, not all rich, but many rich, most rich, earn that money because they're very productive. So for whatever reason, they found a way to offer some sort of product to people who want it for either cheaper or better quality than anyone else was. And they reap the profit of that because people want that. So when you take money from them and you give it to somebody who has no money, and that basically means that he or she, for whatever reason, hasn't provided any productive value to society unless they got robbed or whatever. But your average person, if they have no money, that actually means they haven't provided anything of value to society, or if they did provide value of it, they actually wasted that money on whatever they wasted it on, whether it be cars or clothes or whatever. But it's insane to take from the productive and give to the unproductive, because what that does is it creates a disincentive for the productive to produce, and it creates an incentive for the unproductive to not produce.
Exactly. It's like you get the worst of all possible scenarios, and we see it spiraling toward that, which is why, as I see this happening, it's been so frustrating to see it. But then one of the things that gives me hope, and I think we spend a lot of time in the freedom and liberty movement talking about the reality of how bad it is, but there's also a flip side. And one of my favorite books, probably if not my most favorite book I ever read, is How I Found Freedom in an Unfree World by Harry Browne. Harry Browne was a man who knew economics, he knew finance very well. He ran twice as the presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party, and I had an opportunity to get to know him and meet him through some of the work that I did. I was on a panel with him and two others at Freedom Fest, Sharon Harris and Marshall Fritz. Mark Skousen, the head of Freedom Fest, asked me to join and be on that panel a while back, and I thought, how cool is this? How many times do you get a chance to be on a panel and talk to a person that you voted for president for, who ran in all 50 states? But his book, How I Found Freedom in an Unfree World, I think is one of the most practical on how we pragmatically live in the midst of an unfree world. And I think that following the principles that he talked about and that are there that so many people are implementing, and that, Jeff, you're living and doing, I think that's the way that we can overcome a lot of this that's out there, the draconian measures that we're seeing implemented with governments around the world.
Yeah, you were really lucky to know Harry Browne. I never met him, but everything I've heard about him or read or seen, it sounds like he's an amazing person.
Oh, he was. You know, not only on stage, I got a chance to be there. I sat right next to him in the panel of four, and being from Florida, I got a chance to reach over and say, you know, Harry, and remember in the 2000 election with all the Gore and the Bush stuff that was going on, I said, I want you to know, in the midst of all that, I don't know what the final count was, but you did get one vote for yourself from me. And I shook his hand, and I thought it was really nice. But I got to tell you one thing, and I haven't shared this in public before. Harry Browne was so genuine. He was gracious and kind when people were around. But we went off. He asked me to talk with him about some issues related to speaking, because he was doing speaking. He knows I work as a professional speaker with a lot of speakers bureaus, and we went into a little place there at the hotel, kind of away from everything, but you could still see us, and we were talking about a lot of things for like an hour and a half. Many times people would see him and come up and say, oh, Harry Browne, hello there. Every time he was the most gracious, kind person over and over. I never saw him ever once be rude to people. He was always gracious and kind, and I think that's a lesson for us in liberty, in freedom, to always remain kind and gracious to people, even when they're really upset, to be professional and make sure that we can treat people in a proper way. Sometimes we need to be a little bit strong when we will talk to them, but I like the way that Harry Browne did it, and getting out there and living our lives fully, enjoying it, because really when it comes down to it, enjoying life. Being around friends we like we did at Anarchapulco, sitting there and talking with people into the wee hours of the morning, having some really good drink. And by the way, the vodka was particularly good there. Really liked that stuff. And getting a chance to enjoy it really meant a lot. So thank you again, Jeff, for putting that on.
Oh, yeah. No, it was great. I was really surprised to see how well it did this year. It was our first year, and we're already planning for the next one, which is going to be way bigger by all looks of it. So if you don't know about it, just check it out at anarchapulco.com. As I mentioned before the end of September, there's discounts on everything at the conference, so you can check that out. But your point about Harry Browne being so kind is something I've heard about a number of great leaders of the libertarian movement, including people like Murray Rothbard. I've heard he was one of the most nicest, most endearing people you'd ever meet. You just said the same about Harry Browne. I've heard the same thing. So many of these libertarian leaders, whereas when you look at, the leaders of, the statists, the Republicans or the Democrats, yes. I don't really hear too many people saying, I met Hillary Clinton one day. Oh, she was the nicest person, I've ever met. I've never heard that before, ever.
Yeah, actually, I've heard other people, in the work that I do as a speaker, I see a lot of people, and often they say, so-and-so, whoever that is, a politician, is really nice when the cameras are going. But when the cameras are off, then you find out what they're really like, and they become like a completely different person. The real person comes out. And I think it's because they're living around a world that is not aligned with reality. In nature, you don't get by destruction. You get by being productive. You plant crops. I love the analogy of farming. You plant the crops, you have to watch them, you have to take care of them, nurture them, and have the right amount of rain, right amount of fertilizer, right amount of care. And then after all that caring, then you have harvest. That's the way life works. And unfortunately, those who are statists believe they can come in and they can take. Well, you can take and steal, but when you do, that has ramifications. People say, hey, I don't want to do this again. It got stolen last time. Or they will turn, and then it creates more violence. And really what we're talking about is a very peaceful way of living, never initiating force or coercion. We will defend us. I love the way they talk about it at Pork Fest. You've been up at Pork Fest there in New Hampshire. And the porcupine is their mascot. And the reason is the porcupine is a mascot. It's a very peaceful creature. The porcupine is a wonderful, peaceful, loving creature. But if you mess with it, you will be in deep trouble. So, I think that's a good way to approach life. You're peaceful, we're kind. They mess with us, they will wish they had not.
Yeah, that's generally the don't tread on me sort of a attitude. And it's so funny that a lot of people still to this day, although it's changing dramatically, think that anarchists or even libertarians are either crazy or dangerous, which we're the least, well, we're not crazy and we're definitely not dangerous. We're dangerous if you mess with us, but we will never mess with you. And that's the total difference between statists and individualists or voluntarists or anarchists. And it's just amazing how the media and the government manages to confuse so many people about it to the point where they will say that anarchists are dangerous.
Yeah, and I think that's where we have a responsibility to say, wait a minute, this is what we're really like. We really believe in peace. We want to find peaceful ways to increase our freedom. I like the way Penn Jillette talks about it. He says when there's a problem, too many people say we've got to have a government program for this, or the government needs to solve that. But instead, step back for a moment and think, wait a minute, how can we solve that problem and increase our freedom? How can we increase our freedom and liberty, and at the same time we solve this real world problem? I keep coming back saying a good way to do it that's very libertarian is go out and create more value in the world and make more money. Making money has a big impact. I mean, think about it. Suppose we were billionaires. I'm not yet, but moving in that direction, but be a billionaire, we would have the resources to do a lot. I think of someone like Peter Thiel, who is a billionaire, helped found PayPal and has worked with a number of companies. He's now able to take thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands, and give to people to help start businesses that then grow. And as we have the resources, then we have we get attention of people much more. And so I would say to my fellow libertarians, anarcho-capitalists out there, and freedom lovers, voluntarists that we are, whatever term you're using, work to get them skills. Invest in, first of all, your health, mental and physical health. That's the most important thing. So you're in good shape. And then secondly, market valuable skills. Not just learning about tsetse flies in Ethiopia in the 15th century. That might make for fun reading for some people. You know, you have a good time reading, but read and get new information that will help you so that when people find out you can do a particular skill, they go, really? Could you come over to our place and do that? How much would you charge me to do that? And now, as you're helping them meet their needs, the more you can do that, the better off you'll be. And I think that's really the key. Zig Ziglar said it really well, the late, great Zig Ziglar. He said, you can get anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. And I think that's the approach that we as freedom lovers really should take to enhance our minds, to help others more. Peacefully, we're doing this. And then as we do that, people will look and go, wow, here's all these wonderful anarcho-capitalists, libertarians, voluntarists, whatever we're going to call ourselves, and they're doing very well. Look at these other people over here that are mean and nasty, and they're really all pretty much the same. Whatever side of the Demo-Publican Party they are, as we say in the United States, they really want the same thing, to initiate force and to force us to obey their particular laws.
Yeah, and that's really the main focus of Anarchapulco is anarcho-capitalism, and of course true capitalism or true free markets. In a world where there was no collectivism, no government, and it was all just free markets, voluntary trade, the richest person in the world would be like the most admired person, and for good reason. People would look at that person and go, wow, that guy helped more people, obviously, because he has the most money, and that's just one way of showing that he received some profit from how he helped other people profit. Those people would be just worshipped. But because we've got so much collectivism and theft and violence in the system, so many people get ahead by stealing and by using force and by using things like monopolies through the government. So the government essentially creates these monopolies for certain friends, which is essentially what fascism is. And so what we have today is a lot of people hate rich people, and that's crazy. But it actually makes some sense in today's world because they look at them and they're like, well, they're all central bankers. They're all work on Wall Street, which doesn't really provide hardly anyone with any real value in today's world. And so people think, oh, this is terrible. Capitalism's really bad, but it's not. What they think of as capitalism isn't capitalism. It's corporatism. It's fascism.
Yes.
In a true free market world, rich people would be truly admired, and at the same time, people who are totally broke, not that we would like hate them or anything, but we kind of be like, hey, you're not providing any value. But in today's screwed up world, we steal from those people who are trying to provide value and give it to other people, so they never learn any skills of their own. It's everything's upside down.
Yeah, it is. It's an upside down world, and we want to help people. I think it's part of our human nature and our DNA through evolution and through the centuries and thousands of years. We've learned we do better when we help others, but we're doing it voluntarily. We go out, we make a lot of money, and then we're able to help them so that they get better, not just give them money. Sometimes that's the worst thing to do. One of my heroes is Andrew Carnegie, and what he did and the way he lived his life. He made a lot of money. His goal was to make a lot and then to give it away where it will do, and this is important, the greatest amount of good and the least amount of harm. Just giving someone money can really harm them because it can foster laziness. They can spend it in an area that really wouldn't be helpful for them. But I love the way he did it. He built libraries. And so he would go and he would build the library, but he also said, okay, community here, a small community, I'll build this library for you and I'll fund it for 20 years. It'll be there, but you have to raise the money for the books. Otherwise, then it would just be, oh, Mr. Carnegie's library. And so they wanted it to be theirs. They had to do bake sales. They had to ask people for it. They had to get donations, and they would put it in there. Now, Carnegie could have contributed to that as well. But I think it's a way to really do it. And government doesn't do it that way. Government, again, starts with those good intentions and ends up with bad results because they think, well, if we just get enough money and give the money to the poor, they'll be okay. And what happens in reality is they steal money from people that are working. They filter it through a waste machine in the capital, wherever that is, in Ottawa or Washington or London or wherever. And then they send a portion of it back, but it's got to be filtered through certain things certain procedures and systems that are not always best. I would much rather trust a private charity. I'm not a very religious person myself, but I'd like organizations like the Salvation Army or Goodwill or others that say, we know this person here really needs help, and they're going to do it. And they go, by the way, when you come in here, here's the way we work. We're going to give you your food. We're going to give you a place to sleep. It'll be safe here. But by the way, here's a mop. That floor over there needs to be cleaned. And here's a rag, and that window needs to be cleaned. You're working for it in some way. And I think that's the way that we need to look at how life really should operate, a much better and a much more natural way of doing things.
Yeah, absolutely. You brought some great points about welfare in general. In general, welfare is really bad for people. It's first of all, in our world today, of course, it starts with theft, taxes, and so the people who get robbed get really angry about it. Obviously, who wouldn't get angry if you're getting robbed? No one likes to get robbed. So it creates this already right off the bat a really hostile sort of situation of unhappiness, and then the people receiving the funds they take it for granted because it comes from the government, so they don't really meet this person who was stolen from, and they don't get to thank that person or anything. They just see it as almost like an entitlement, which is what happens over time, is people just see it as, oh, well, the government takes care of us, and that's just what happens. And so they never learn a skill, and this actually can go on for generations and just destroy people. So this whole system is terrible. While at the same time, you see on the internet all the time, especially more and more now that more people are on YouTube and things like that, you'll see a guy and he'll go and give someone, like a homeless person, like a free rent for a month or actually 6 months or a year or something. I saw someone do. And man, that guy was so thankful. And the guy who gave it to him felt so good. It was they both felt great afterwards. Whereas when you do it through the state, they both feel kind of crappy and it kind of ruins both their lives.
Exactly, and we get this term called entitled, and we have entitlements. I mean, come on, that's not even a valid word, really. The idea that somebody is entitled just because of this, we can all find a reason why we're entitled to receive money. But when you have to get out there and you work for it, you scratch and claw and you get disappointments, you have setbacks, you learn from those. That's the way the marketplace works. We learn by adapting. Joseph Schumpeter, the great economist, talked about that we have creative destruction. And that creative destruction is signals. When it's something you try and it doesn't work, okay, that's a signal the market says don't do it that way. Or if you price it just a little too high, okay, maybe we need to bring it down. Or if it's too low, you run out of what you've got. You go, whoa, we should raise the price on that a little bit. The marketplace has a wonderful way of providing the answers that we need if we listen to it, unencumbered. But again, we go back to the people that feel somehow arrogantly, when you really get down to it, they arrogantly think they know more than somebody else how to live your life. And again, I like what Penn Jillette says, that for libertarianism really is the idea that I'm not smart enough to tell you how to live your life. I think we each need to live our lives as long as two conditions are met. Number one, you take responsibility for your life. Don't go do something stupid and then ask me to take care of you because of that. And number two, you don't initiate force. Do not harm another person through coercion, fraud, theft. Do not do that. And we can get along really well. Jeff, it's interesting. You have traveled around the world a lot. I've been to 35 countries myself, and I'm getting more all the time and love it. But I've asked people in local places, I go to a local bar, and usually after about the local second drink or so, you get a chance to find out what they really think. And I'll say, hey, tell me what you think of this philosophy. What if you lived your life, do anything you want to do, but take responsibility and don't harm another person. Kind of live and let live. How does that philosophy strike you? And just in my own non-scientific random sampling, I've yet to meet anyone that says, oh, that's not going to work. People over and over by nature embrace that kind of living and thinking. And I think that really gives us an advantage to get the message out in the midst of the collapse and all the mess that's coming that you have been telling us about. We get prepared for that, and we are there saying, hey, we can be that beacon of light. Here's what you can do. You don't have to embrace that falsehood that we saw in socialism and communism before, and the authoritarian. Instead, we need freedom. We need liberty. And guide your life by those principles. Whatever the technologies are, 100 years from now, 200 years from now, we don't know what they'll be, but the principles of take responsibility and never initiate force or coercion will still work.
Yeah, one of the most interesting things about this moment in time is that most of these status constructs are all collapsing. We're seeing it all the time. Every government in the world basically is bankrupt. Every bank in the world is technically bankrupt right off the bat just through fiat fractional reserve banking. That makes every bank that does fractional reserve banking, which is pretty much every bank in the world, insolvent already, because if everyone came to withdraw their money, they don't have it. And so all these systems are collapsing. And now we have all these great new things coming online. And you started off at the very beginning talking about technology and how this is improving things. And we have a real opportunity now for this sort of really voluntarist sort of world to occur. And at the same time, the collectivist world is collapsing. And one of the great things about anarcho-capitalism and Anarchapulco, just one of the speakers off the top of my head was past Anarchast guest Orion Martin. That's a great young anarcho-capitalist who's creating a app for your phone called Sidekick, which essentially will get rid of the police state pretty much overnight once it gets launched and people start using it. So this is a wonderful time where we have the old systems collapsing, which is going to be very difficult for a lot of people. But once we get through that, we have the opportunity to go to a much more peaceful and prosperous world. And so many anarcho-capitalists are already trying to create that world, including things like Bitcoin, which I think was created by an anarcho-capitalist. Everything that Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever it was, said, it sounds very anarchist to me. And he essentially predicted what was going to happen, that these fiat currencies would be collapsing and created a free market money. So we're actually creating this world now, even before the old world has completely crumbled. So this is a very interesting time.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's so much opportunity right now. And as you look around the community of people that we know who are anarcho-capitalists, those of us who embrace the concept of living life, we often are involved in technology. And think about it right now, Jeff, you and I are communicating. I'm here in Orlando, in my home. You're there in Acapulco. We can see out the window. By the way, that looks beautiful out the back of the window. Gorgeous. We have wonderful scenery here as well. But you see, we can operate now, and we're having beautiful, crystal clear communication. We're able to do this because of technology. And for those of you watching this, think about ways that you can leverage that and make money. How you can do it, regardless of what place you're in, you can do this. Make sure you get the bandwidth, make sure that you've got the equipment to do it, and then you can start offering services. I worked with Skype for a while. Skype asked me to come on board and help them with some of the program that they were doing with blogging, with video interviews, things like that. And the fact that now we can reach out to people around the world, it's amazing. I don't think we have any clients right now from Orlando, a couple in Florida, but usually they're from all over the world. We're heading over to Australia. We're going to be in Singapore and Dubai, and the world now becomes our oyster. So I would encourage those of you that are listening to this, let's go beyond the frustration of, oh, gee, the government did this bad thing. Oh, did you hear what they did today? Oh, my goodness, some stupid thing government did. Yeah, we agree with you on that, but let's go beyond that and think of ways that we can leverage this technology. We learn certain skills, we study, we take the courses, we hire the coaches, we hire the mentors, we do what is necessary so that we can learn the skills, make the money, and do it internationally. I like to often say, don't put all of your eggs in one country. Make sure that you are diversified. Doug Casey has said this so well, and Bobby Casey also said it very well. And the ways to do this, study these people. There's some geniuses here. And matter of fact, go over a lot of the past views and episodes of Anarchast and the Dollar Vigilante. There's some real ways, serious ways you can use to make money. And if you feel like, oh, gee, I'm stuck here in this, I can't go very far, you can break out of it. I grew up in Michigan, not far from Detroit. Look at Detroit today. It's a mess. But I got out of there, and decide I'm going to learn skills that others want, and I'm still learning. I feel like I'm just getting started. So I think that's the key. And even with all the bad that's going on, there's a whole lot of good that's waiting. And as things collapse and we see that inevitable fiat currency demise, which is going to happen sooner or later, you'll be ready for it. Pour your money into your mind. I love the way that Ben Franklin said it. He said, pour the coins of your purse into your mind, and your mind will overflow your purse with coins. So invest in your education, learn those market valuable skills, and you'll be able to survive whatever happens.
Yeah, and you don't need to go to 4 years of college to do it anymore either. That's another old sort of concept that makes no sense anymore. I just saw a quote just the other day on the internet that's, I think it was Roger Ver posted it, who was at Anarchapulco and on Anarchast before. He said something along the lines of, the internet has created more free education than any politician who's ever lived. And that's totally true. All information is completely free on the internet now. And it's quite amazing, isn't it, to think about technology and how fast it's changing as well. If you think about it, 10 years ago, there was no such thing really as a smartphone. The Apple iPhone hadn't even been conceived, I don't think, much less produced. If you think about 10 years before that, that was when the internet was created, about 1994, 1995. And back then, you could barely do anything on it. It was archaic by our standards. You could see just in a matter of 30 years ago, or 20 years ago was the internet. 10 years ago was the smartphone. 30 years ago, forget about it. I used to be on things 30 years ago, and it was literally you could type faster than you could send the information. And if you would have told me that within 20 or 30 years, we'd be able to do video conferencing and HD quality for free, and this is, Skype video is free. All these things that we can do, you look at, you can post any video you want, your entire life you could put up on the internet for free on YouTube. Everything's changing. You look at things like Airbnb, it's now the largest hotelier in the world, and it doesn't own one hotel room. You look at Uber, it's the largest, essentially, taxi company in the world. It doesn't own any taxis. You look at Facebook, it's the largest provider of information in the world. It doesn't create any of its own information. This is just a massive, massive change that's going on and continues to go on, and it's going exponential now. So the amount of opportunities is amazing, and I think we really have a chance now for the first time to start to move beyond these old systems a lot faster and a lot easier.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I think education, the formal education, was right for me at the time. I needed it. But today, if I were, 20 years old today, I would have to seriously consider, do I need it? Now, in some professions, yes. You want to be a dentist, you want to be a medical doctor, an engineer, okay, I got it. But for many, many people, they don't have to. Jeff, I know have several friends that are multi-millionaires, self-made, and they did not even go to college. Many of them didn't graduate from high school, because when you think about it, with something like this, just a little smartphone, you can read the greatest minds of all time. You can listen to and watch the videos, and you can connect with experts around the world, be able to share some Bitcoins with them, be able to use PayPal or whatever to send money to them, and you can interview them and talk to them about whatever you want to know. Now is the time, but you have to take action. It's not going to happen we're working on this, Jeff. I can put the iPhone up to my head and somehow it will, through osmosis, go in there. But we don't have that one yet. You got to actually read the stuff. But if you're willing to do that and pay the price in terms of time, money, and energy, then you're going to be able to succeed and get that kind of education that really matters most anyway.
Yeah, and like I said, most things are free on the internet. Even MIT offers all its courses for free on the internet. All information essentially is for free on the internet. So it's kind of crazy to go for 4 years of Bachelor of Arts and spend tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that no one cares that you have that piece of paper, and they're going to care way less in the future. It's just not going to be relevant. In fact, that's what most people hear when they get out of college is they go to a job interview and they say, what's your experience? What's your work experience? And these are 24, 25-year-old adults, and they have no experience. It's insane. The entire idea of going to 12 years of government public schools, and you get out, you don't know anything. So then you have to go for 4 more years. And if you go to Bachelor of Arts, you still don't know anything, and you've still never done anything. That's crazy.
Yep, it really is. And the key is today, what you want to do is you want to go to school that you make. You are the student. You are the professor. And you want to make that the number one way you do it and learn how to learn fast. If you learn how to learn fast, you're going to do well. Learn reading. I use photo reading and use that a lot for reading. Not like, it's kind of like speed reading, but it's a little different. But learn how to consume mass amounts of information and work on memory. If you can do that, and then connecting with people of like mind really helps, and learn how to get along with people. If you can use those, you're going to be able to go far and study whatever you want. Like Jeff was saying, you can go in and you can take those courses through MIT, through Stanford, through Wharton, Harvard. They have these MOOC classes that are online right now, so you can get those massive online learning courses that are available for you. Just get out there, but you do have to read. Go for it. And usually the cost is zero. Sometimes you will need to put some money into it. And if you do, okay, fine. But it doesn't always necessarily have to be through the formal education. And really, think about people that are doing well right now, like Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Larry Ellison. They did not complete college education. They are studying, though. They're reading, and they're doing it on their own. And that's the key.
Yeah, Steve Jobs included in that.
Yep,
and I think
exactly.
it was Mark Twain who said, don't let school get in the way of your education. And that's totally true.
Yes.
We now have the opportunity to learn as much as we want, and it's fascinating. Unfortunately, most people still carry around their phone, which, you just pointed to the camera there. That little tiny thing has all the information in the world inside of it, and a lot of people still use it to look at funny pictures of cats, which is kind of sad. But that's their choice. If they don't want to, learn, they can fall behind or whatever. But we have nothing but potential right now. It's a really exciting, interesting time in human history, and I think for that reason, things like Anarchapulco are so great. We can get together, and I know just at the Anarchapulco that we were just at, there's so many great friendships came out of it. Not only friendships, but also business ventures, partners came out of it. A lot of people are already working on things together. So it's a really exciting time.
Absolutely. And you see, that's another thing, too. Why you want to be there at Anarchapulco. It's great. It's also very important for those of you that are in the United States. Let me say this. You won't believe the kind of freedom they have. And when you see it on the ground, boots on the ground, don't believe what you're reading in the newspapers. There's some really good things happening. And being around a group of people that say, yes, we believe in freedom. Yes, we believe in making money. Yes, we believe in helping you. And let's just see what we can do. Let's explore. Let's get to know each other and find we can help each other. That is where you want to be. You want to put your money, your time, and your energy into being in those types of places. And I highly recommend look into Anarchapulco. For me, it was just a marvelous experience. Being there, being around people, getting a chance to talk and share and learn from a whole different perspective. So put the time, money, and energy into that to make it happen.
Yeah, and as well, if you do like sort of a bit more of a classroom environment, you can do these things so much faster. There's something called Exobase, which we had at Anarchapulco this year. We're going to have it next year. Next year is just going to be a one-day boot camp about entrepreneurship, and you can essentially learn most things you need to know in a day. In fact, I can teach you a business administration, or actually just a business college degree, in about 2 sentences or less, or actually probably just one. Find a product or service that no one else is offering, or if they're offering it, offer it at a better price or better quality than the competitors. There you go. I saved you 4 years of how to be in business. That's essentially all there is to it. So it's interesting times and so much opportunity, but at the same time, a lot of things changing, and there's a lot of risk at the same time. So this is a very fascinating time. So Terry, I like to keep these shorter, although I could talk to you quite a bit longer for sure, but maybe we'll see you in Anarchapulco. We'll see you speaking there. Is there anything else you want to let people know, and also any websites or anything you want people to know about you?
Yeah, I would say in the midst of all that's going on, we have to agree with you that it can be rough. But remember, the optimism is even stronger. The possibilities are there, but you've got to get the skills for that. That means, start reading, and start reading the right things, and attending where you're going to be around people that think. I do this a lot and talk about it on my website at www.terrybrock.com, and that's Terry, and Brock is spelled the right way, B-R-O-C-K. So terrybrock.com, and you can read the articles that I have there. And if you want to get in touch with me, I'd love to hear from you. Just terry@terrybrock.com. And Jeff, again, while I've got the microphone here, thank you so much for what you've done. You've given not just wonderful programming and entertainment that we really enjoy, but a practical way to live. Practical way to make things happen in the midst of a crumbling world. So Jeff, on behalf of everyone, thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you. And yeah, it's been great. So we'll see you down here in Acapulco in February 19th to 21st for Anarchapulco. So that's it for Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. Peace, love, and anarchy.
When you consider that you have to spend all your time basically unteaching what your kids just learned.
So not only must the government recognize natural rights, but the government can't disparage them. Unfortunately, the people in the government have a hole in their copy where the Second Amendment is, the Ninth Amendment, and the 10th Amendment.
So, this is not so saintly. I mean, because he's got the reputation of favoring, ending slavery. But he wasn't an opponent of slavery. The abolitionists were opponent of slavery, but not Abe Lincoln.
I mean, the actual argument and the explanation is pretty darn simple. I mean, it's so simple as to almost be self-evident. I mean, things like self-ownership and the non-aggression principle, it takes about 3 seconds to demonstrate that government can't be legitimate.
Well, I think human beings have the right to shape their own reality. And that's what's been taken away from us. We are participating involuntarily in a system that shapes our reality for us. And the first step is to not allow that.
You're paying off your debt, you have to pay off your car loans, your mortgage, you have to maybe even live with your parents, and then you look back at your life and you did nothing. You never challenged yourself, you never experienced anything, you never lived your life because you kept doing what the machine told you to do.
From Acapulco, Mexico, this is Anarchast.